Hello and welcome to this episode of Steelfur Speaks / Supremacy, I guess, where we're looking at the meta tier list after we have come out of the Krakow calling. I think we're just going to do this very quickly. I obviously casted the calling, so I was engaged in this meta all for a full weekend. So I saw what heroes were doing well and what heroes weren't, which I think is going to be very, very useful while making this list. And I also watched a game with lots of off meta heroes because just because we had to have kind of like a lot of different games on stream. We couldn't just have the best heroes every single round. I think that's just, as expected. I think, we're going to start off just by putting a lot of these heroes that we don't, that aren't really relevant for the discussion, just where they belong. If you disagree with any of these, I'm sorry, but these heroes are pretty trash. So we're just going to clear them out so they're not really on top of our radar. It's not really fair. We'll put Azalea in C tier. She's not great, but she's not completely terrible. Any others? Any more for any more? No, I think that's mostly it. So those are just the meme heroes that really, if you're playing them, good luck to you. Azalea's gotten a lot better recently. She's still amazing. The one thing really we just need to get out of the way, Viserai obviously just goes right at the top. That's not really a question. Let's just make this a bit bigger. That's not really a question, is it? The Viserai goes right at the top. 30% of the field was Viserai. That's not the only reason he did very well. The prevalence of just his powerful cards, the amount of damage he can put out with Sonatas and Revels and Skeleta is just so high, no one can really compete with him. But if we're thinking about what heroes come close to be able to compete with him, we're going to have to put Kano up there. Just a lot of arcane damage that you can't really deal with. Old him in terms of aggression. And also we're going to have to put Icelander up there. All did relatively well over the weekend. What comes in terms of B tier? Well, other heroes we saw do reasonably well into these decks. All of these. Bit Alexi probably there as well. And remember how we classify these. The S tier is the best deck in the field. That has no or maybe one bad matchup, or usually none really. In terms of if you're thinking about S tier, it usually doesn't have any bad matchups and will win most of the games that it plays against every opponent that is not the mirror match. A is a deck that can beat S when it gets lucky, or also just a deck that doesn't have that many poor matchups. And is just a good contender for the top slot. B is a solid deck that probably plays the game a bit too fairly and is therefore not an S tier deck, but still has power and can beat S tier when it draws really well. C is bad, not consistent, struggles with being consistent, delivering a fundamental gameplay strategy, and will have a hard time beating S tier decks majority of the time, and even A tier or B tier decks. And D is unplayable. Decks that have really hard times pulling off their main strategy and just are really sort of confused and conflicted and don't really do what they need to do. And one thing you'll notice about Flesh and Blood, and I think this is very true of a lot of heroes, is that they really, there's a lot of heroes in the B tier, right? There's a lot of heroes who, could be competitive if they if they were just if S tier didn't exist, right? This is the easiest thing. If Viserai didn't exist, the A tier would look completely different. It wouldn't be Kano on top, but the B tier would change completely. So actually, I think in Blitz, if Viserai goes, we're actually in a position where the meta is quite strong. Now, I'm not going to talk exactly why I put every single one of these people here. I'll summarize it very quickly, and then you could, if you're worried about a specific hero, you can flash back and look at this video. So Viserai, obviously the most powerful, does stupid amounts of damage in Blitz, kind of needs to be addressed or get Living Legend. Kano is very good at melting Viserai. It's very good at killing Viserai on his turn. Viserai has not got a lot of blues, so has to take a lot of damage from Kano, which means if Kano is racing Viserai, he can often kill him before Viserai can deal the final blow to Kano. Who goes first is incredibly impactful in that matchup. If Kano goes first, he can deal a lot of damage and then get Viserai low enough to kill him on Viserai's second turn when Viserai is trying to go for the kill. Oldhim can slow Viserai down a bit and put up a lot of aggro himself, but obviously loses to a lot of rune charm build-up if that happens, but can be quite aggressive and quite powerful, especially against other decks down here. Iceland has a lot of disruption control tools that can slow Viserai down. We saw an Icelander make the top 8 of Krakow. A lot of that is driven by the fact that a lot of people don't know how to play against Icelander, but it is worth considering that she is also quite an interesting hero with a lot of disruption. Dash has a lot of boost and a lot of damage that makes her good against a lot of the field. It's not as much as Viserai, so it doesn't really make the winning slot. Kasai is just too fair. She has just too much of a damage cap per turn, so people don't have to worry about her as much because you're not giving her enough turns to ever get to the point where she's dealing enough damage to kill you. Same goes for Dorinthia. She's just a bit too fair. You know how much damage Dorinthia can do, and a lot of that damage is amplified by blocking, so if you don't block or you just race her, you can kill her pretty quickly. Katsu is alright, Ninja does lots of interesting stuff, but again, at the moment we're in a field where explosive damage is what's needed, and Katsu and Ira both don't deliver explosive damage. Ira has traditionally been a slower, more grindy sort of control-y deck. Lexi can do explosive damage, but the arrows just aren't consistent, and if she whiffs, she dies. Briar, again, can do explosive damage, but there are consistency problems, which can lead to her dying. KO is the king of lack of consistency. If he rolls well, you can win. If he doesn't, you lose. But you need to roll really well on that one turn, because you only actually have 2 turns to roll really well. Benji could be better, but people keep trying to OTK people and not having stuff to buff their OTK attacks. You cannot win with Benji unless you're playing an attack reaction on Spring Tidings. You cannot OTK someone turn 2 without an attack reaction, which means it's very, very variable in a format that goes so quickly. Rhydar, again, like Katsu and Ira, is much better as a slower control hero. He can win very quickly if he gets lucky, but of course, getting lucky is the problem. Azalea still suffers from consistency problems related to her main hero ability. Bolton is good in terms of combo deck. Doesn't have time to build up to it. Valda is alright, but just a worse Oldhim. Doesn't have as many good cards, and therefore can't compete as well. Same goes for Bravo. Prism is good enough, but the fact is that most of the people who matter can break Prism's auras reasonably well, even including Viserai. And she just doesn't have time to build up. Sorry, most people can break her attacks well enough and do more damage than her. She doesn't have time to build up a board because of the health pool. Chain is just, good, but not as good as the best Runeblade. These 3 are just not very well made heroes in general. They do interesting, fun things, or they do weird things that kill themselves, but they're not really good in a position to be considered for the top spot. That's kind of the meta where it stands. Again, as I say, I want to quickly just give an idea of where I think the meta goes if we just, yeet Viserai. So let's just yeet Viserai down here. See what comes up. I don't think anything is at the S tier if Viserai goes to the top. I think Oldhim is still as good, but I think we can move Dash, Kasai, and maybe Briar and Ira up here, right? I think that gives us more options. And I actually think if Viserai went away, we would actually have a much broader field. I really do feel like, it might even consider Dorinthia coming up here a bit, or even Lexi. I do wonder if Viserai went away, would the field look something like this? Now, Oldhim shuts down quite a few of these heroes, right? But people don't like playing him in large numbers because of the mirror match. So I do wonder if we would start to see a broader field without Viserai. And that's really just going to have to be a question that we're going to have to wait and see when the next sort of Blitz season comes around. I am firmly of the opinion that Viserai will get Living Legends soon. And because of that, I expect that we're going to have to see quite a few drastic changes. And things are going to be shaken up quite a bit when that new meta comes around. But, there is always a best deck in Fab. But one of the things I will say about Blitz is that it feels like a lot of the heroes actually do bring very interesting things to the table. In terms of once the problem with Viserai and what it's doing to the meta, just as a last note, is that it deals so much damage that you don't have time to enact any other strategy, right? And all you really need is there to be an idea of a damage cap or a limit to the amount of damage you can do in Blitz, to allow people to develop other strategies and alternatives to counteract what you're doing, right? So, Dash doesn't have a chance to do any build-up or even get the damage in there. Kasai doesn't have a chance to build copper tokens. Lexi doesn't have a chance to load arrows. Kano doesn't have a chance to set up combo. Benji doesn't have a chance to stack and draw attack reactions to boost his Spring Tidings. All of these heroes just don't have a way to build their actual game plan if the format only lasts for 2 turns, right? So when you take away Viserai, assuming no other hero steps up to be able to make this a 2-turn format, and I don't think any of them will, then suddenly you have a much more accessible game. And that's where the optimism for Blitz as a format comes in. I would say I quite like Blitz sometimes. I play Blitz when I just don't, really care about winning too much. I just play it when I want to play lots of games in a short period of time and have a bit of fun. And when Blitz is treated as that casual sort of format, I think that's when Blitz is fun. I'm also looking forward to Commoner as that kind of stress relief valve as well. A game we can play in between CC that is lower powered and more of a sort of safety valve for casual play than Blitz Blitz currently is right now. So hopefully when Viserai goes, things will happen. But of course, you have my tier list for the moment from Krakow, based on what I saw on the stream and just my thoughts on the meta at the moment. Obviously, as always, people will disagree with this. If you do, please come into the comments and feel free to, say whatever you have to say to me. I'm here to take it. I'm a grown man. I don't mind. Speak to you all soon. Thanks and bye.